Hello, hello, and welcome to um, my thought on this really interesting Thursday. It's very sunny out, but it still doesn't feel like spring. And I'm continuing my kindness of strangers, and the reason I'm doing that is because we're avoiding even friends now, and strangers, as I've said, have literally made my life happen. And one of the ones I'm thinking of is I used to go to Davies Symphony Hall in San Francisco, and I used to take people to their seats. And I was in the elevator with with a little old lady who was older than I, which is always an achievement. And but this was in my 60s. Oh no, it was yeah, I hadn't started comedy yet, so it was in my 60s. And we simply struck up a conversation about the symphony. And she gave me her number, and I called her, and we became really close friends. And she bought several of my paintings. Um, I would hate to think of days without Edie. But one of the things she did for me, and I think this is important, is she helped me understand a more conservative mind. I tend to think that if you're human, you deserve everything. If you're a child, you're a king or a queen. And if you're a woman, the whole world is shitting on you and I'm going to help you. But she didn't feel that way. She worked for the welfare department of San Francisco. And San Francisco is inundated with drug addicts and with people who are using the welfare system uh, when they're not actually needy. And that happens, I think, in a highly capitalistic country. If you're looking around now at what's happening in Britain, it's absolutely amazing. It's amazing because this country is a country that believes in taking care of one another. America is a country that believes in being self sufficient. And that is the thing that we devote ourselves to. So Edie had to decide when these people came and she interviewed them. And she was a teeny little lady. She was shorter than I. And those of you who know me know that's almost an impossibility. But and just as sweet as she could be, I just loved her. But when she worked with these needy people, she was not a person that I would have loved because she was really cruel. No matter what they said, she didn't believe a word they said. And I began to realize that if you're inundated with liars and with cheats, you begin to think that all people are that way. And I want to reassure you that all people are not that way. I could not have gotten through life if it hadn't been for kindness of people that I had never ever met before. Well, my funny story with Edie is we were at Davies Symphony Hall going, because we went to concerts then together, and we were sitting in front of a couple, and I think it was during a Brahms concerto. It was absolutely wonderful music. And this couple in front of us was really, really getting it on. And Edie turned to me and she said, "That is disgusting." And I said to her, "Don't you remember? Don't you remember?" And talking about that, um, I all of us as we get older, about remembering, all of us as we get older, we forget that we can't do the things we used to do. Um, I have two stories about that one. I was sitting watching Giselle with my friend Mildred Owen, who was 2 years older than I, and we were watching it, and you could see that we were just totally transported. And then I tapped her on the shoulder and I said, "You see that?" I said, "We can't do that anymore. We can't do that anymore." So age does change you. But my favorite story was a man named Julius who was in his 90s. And he was coming on to me, which I thought was very sweet. And he called me, and we had very spirited intellectual discussions. And then he said to me, "I really love to walk." And I said, "Well, I do too." He said, "Well, I'll tell you what, I'll come to to Pacifica, that's where I lived, and we'll walk to the beach." And I said, "Sure, I would love that." And I have actually used this in my comedy routines. And he was 90 years old, and he came to me, and he looked fit as a fiddle, you know, trim and tidy, and gray hair, slightly balding, adorable, really adorable. And we walked to the beach. Now, where I lived in Pacifica was approximately, if you walked slowly with dogs pooping along the way, was approximately a 5 minute walk. We walked to the beach together. It took us almost an hour. And when we got to the beach, he said to me, I don't think I can make it home. And that was when I realized that as we age, we don't realize how how much we have disintegrated. And he thought he was walking as briskly as he could walk, and it took him an unbelievable amount of time to do about 20 yards. I mean, you would call it meters, to do about 20 meters. You could actually see the beach from my house, and he could not get there. So um, that is my thought for today, which actually is two thoughts. One is that it never hurts to talk to strangers. I've made some of the best friends I've ever had. And the other is don't think that age is just a number. Believe me, it has its effect. And thank you so much for joining me for my double thought today on Thursday.